morning and happy Friday. For those of you that are new, welcome. And for those of you that are returning, welcome back to the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, episode number 27, Geek Out and Freak Out. My name is Bill. I have been an airline pilot for the past 7 years, hold 5 FAA type ratings, and currently fly the Boeing 737 for a major U.S. airline. My co-host is fellow co-founder of the 3 Green Simulations Group, retired New York City EMT, gamer, and flight sim extraordinaire, Tommy D of Level Flight Simulations. On this week's show, we are talking about U.S. airline furloughs and hiring, gaming updates with the PMD G.27, and the coolest looking trucks in 2024 according to Motor Trend. Then we'll learn industry terms with jargon in a jiffy, learn from past accidents with safety stand down, live listener Q&A, in our discussion this week, Geek Out and Freak Out, where Tommy and I will discuss we'll get technical with the technology behind the camera. As I said before, joining me today is Tommy D of Level Flight Simulations. How are you doing this morning, Tommy?
I'm good, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Just while we started the show, just got a severe thunderstorm warning for my area. So if suddenly the podcast goes kaput, that is why. But Tommy and I already have procedures in place. If that happens, I'll just give you a call, Tommy, so we can discuss what we're going to do. But that is coming my way. So if I lose power and the podcast goes kaput, that's what happens. So
let's hope for not.
Yeah, Tommy had that happen 2 days ago, right as I was gonna go live stream Call of Duty on Twitch. Tommy's power went out, and then KB came to game with me to save the day.
Literally, as you jumped in the lobby.
Yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that does not happen today. But if it does, everybody knows what it is. Wouldn't be the first time. One of our Microsoft Flight Simulator sims that we did, or streams that we did, I don't know if you remember, it was when we were going to Indianapolis. Just after you landed, as we were doing the parking checklist, power went out of my house and the stream went. So it has happened before, but just so you know, and everything's run from my side. So if I go kaput, the whole podcast goes kaput. So we'll keep that in mind as we're going through. But how about yourself, Tommy? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I am doing really, really well. It's been busy the last couple of weeks, the both of us, with family stuff going on, but thankfully everything has finally calmed down for the both of us.
Yes, and I do apologize for last week. Tommy and I had to cancel the podcast. This episode was supposed to be last week, but unfortunately, we both had family emergencies that week, which involved family members going to the hospital. So that took priority. So we had to cancel the show because we were taking care of business here at home. But we're back. We didn't skip an episode, just skipped a week. So we have a really exciting episode today. I'm super excited about it because Tom and I get to geek out about our setup. You all really don't get to see what's behind the camera per se. You only get to see what we let you see, right? But today we're going to be kind of talking a little bit about our setups as well, what's actually going on behind the camera, and allowing ourselves to geek out and freak out about each other's setups. But starting off today, I will be doing some aviation news. And today we're going to be talking about kind of a big topic in the industry, which is furloughing and the hiring status of the airlines here in the United States. Why it's a big topic is it's surprising, post-pandemic, everybody's traveling like crazy. The numbers are ridiculous. I think the TSA set a new record with the number of passengers they screened this past summer or this past spring. But there's furloughs going on. You got Spirit furloughing. You have Mesa furloughing. American Airlines, United Airlines, and Delta. Well, United Airlines pausing hiring for a little bit, and then Delta spooling back their targeted hiring numbers for this year. So let's talk about it a little bit, because what you got to understand in this industry is that anything really can cause a downturn in the airline industry, but there's different things. So back in 2020, it was the pandemic. That's why we saw furloughs then. The pandemic was literally quite caused and spread via travel, people traveling all over the world. So the only way to really stop the spread was to reduce travel. Well, when you reduce travel, there's not as much demand. So the demand goes down, which means the airlines are trying to save money because they're not taking as much profit as they normally do. So then you end up getting furloughed. I personally, luckily, knock on wood, have not been furloughed. But at Envoy, when I was there, they furloughed 230 or 227 pilots while I was there. The recalls was less than a year later. But going, in 2008 recession, stuff like that. But this is actually kind of interesting. I never foresaw furloughs happening due to these reasons that we're going to be talking about, because in the past, usually furloughs are resulting as of a drastic event like 9/11 or due to the economy issues like in 2008. And then just recently, the pandemic, that was a huge one. I never thought I'd see a disease or sickness like that cause such a dramatic change in the industry. But now there's even a new one that I didn't anticipate. So we'll go through that a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end, about the industry, what you guys need to know when you are aspiring to be an airline pilot. So the first one we're talking about is Spirit Airlines. So Spirit Airlines has been a big part of the news. More so recently because of their acquisition with JetBlue getting blocked by the Department of Justice. Tommy and I talked about that on episode number, I want to say it was like 19 or maybe 14. It's called Antitrust. It was probably episode 14, so definitely go check that out. One of my favorite episodes of all time and one of our highest ranking episodes in the podcast series. We just went and talked about truly what anti-competitive or anti-compete clause that they were trying to use to bar the merger between JetBlue and Spirit, and how it actually wasn't anti-competitive, because I believe that they should have been allowed to merge to compete against Southwest. That's just my thing. But now Spirit's in the news again for something a little bit different, involving the furloughing of 200 pilots, and this is largely due to network capacity as a result of grounding of the A320neos. There has been a lot of focus on Boeing. We've been talking about Boeing the past couple episodes, but I just remind you, it's happening all over the place. So the A320neos having issues with their engines, their Pratt & Whitney engines. There's a manufacturing defect with them that requires them to be, after I think it's like 2,500 hours of flight time, which in a aircraft or an airline aircraft comes up pretty quickly. It requires those engines to be removed from the aircraft and have that part replaced. Now, I commute with a Spirit airline captain, and he was telling me that could take up to a year. And right now, they have 40 of their A320neos grounded because of those Pratt & Whitney engines inspection and removals. And there's also Spirit, because of the uncertainty about future orders of the A320neo and how it's going to affect it, they've also stopped orders and deliveries from Airbus. So the way that works is when airlines are hiring, they're hiring to staff future orders. Like United is hiring to staff the future Boeing 737 MAX, so the projections. But when those projections don't come to fruition, then that's where the hiring issues and the furloughing starts. So that's why right now Spirit Airlines is furloughing 200 pilots, is because a majority of their fleet, which is going to be the A320neos and future orders, have stopped working. So as of right now, Spirit Airlines obviously not going to be hiring 200 while they're furloughing. And that was per Simple Flying. Now, Mesa Airlines, which is the only regional I know of at this time that is furloughing, they're looking to furlough 12 pilots. Those are active pilots on the line, and 41 trainees on July 12th of this month. So today, as of today, 12 pilots will be furloughed from Mesa, and 41 trainees will have their classes deferred. So they're still in the pool, but they are going to not be training for a while. And this is as a result of a significantly reduced attrition to the major airlines. So you got to understand that the major airlines is where it all, I guess, leads to. And so when the major airlines stop hiring, it creates this backflow and this clog of pilots and stops hiring. Mesa Airlines is citing that as, there's not as many people going up to or going to other airlines at the time, so they're becoming overstaffed. Another factor to that, too, is when you work for a fee-for-departure carrier like SkyWest, Republic, Mesa, if you're not wholly owned, your business or your flights per day are based on what the major airline is willing to give you at the price you offered or bid for. So, for example, part of United Next is to downsize the regional flying and move a lot of the regional flying to mainline flying, which is, the bigger aircraft. Well, with that being said, that means slowly over time, United is going to be taking more of the flying from the regionals and have it in-house at their level, which means they're taking flying away from the regionals, which means they're not going to need as many pilots, which will result in a smaller pilot group, which unfortunately may also lead to downsizing or furloughs like this as well. But the good news is Mesa does anticipate callbacks later this year, and that is largely, like I said, to attrition to the bigger airlines or for people who are trying to go to United. It's the Boeing issue. It's Boeing deliveries. Now, the next big one is American Airlines. American Airlines has paused hiring and class starts until the end of the year, citing the delivery issues with the Boeing 787 and the 737 MAX. Because of the recent whistleblower issues as well as the MAX issues with the Alaska door, with the... I'm pretty sure it was a MAX, the Southwest flight that had the Dutch roll incident. Well, they're calling it accident now because it was a failure of a flight control. Ever since the MAX accidents back in 2018, there's been a lot of pressure on Boeing, rightfully so. I'm not defending Boeing, but that has slowed down the delivery because of these little hiccups. And like I said before, everything is based on projected number of aircraft for staffing. So when an aircraft or the airline at the beginning of the year says we want to hire this many people, it is based off of the number of aircraft they're anticipating getting. For example, in 2023, we were supposed to be getting at United was supposed to be getting a new 737 MAX every 3 days. That didn't happen, but that's how they're hiring to staff. So when United and Delta or an American paused their classes, it's because they were trying to get a handle on what the actual delivery schedule was from Boeing. I'm happy to announce that United didn't stop interviewing. They were still interviewing. They just weren't handing out class dates. So there was a pause on class dates. But as of right now, as far as I'm aware, United has resumed class dates, and American Airlines just said we're going to wait and evaluate until the end of the year. And as far as I'm aware, there is no effect on their wholly owned regionals, Envoy, Piedmont, and PSA, although Piedmont did have a short pause in hiring this summer, but I think it's resumed as well. But American Airlines has stopped hiring altogether until the end of the year. Delta has also reduced their number for the year. They haven't stopped hiring or interviewing, but they have reduced their target number to reflect their fleet and growth, etc. And then Southwest, which is the biggest Boeing user ever in the history of Boeing, has stopped hiring altogether because that's all their fleet is the Boeing 737s, which makes sense. You know, you don't want to overstaff because that means you're having a lot of pilots sitting around that aren't flying, that you're paying to fly, but no jets to fly, if that makes sense for the business model. So it's a really weird time to be seeing that a aircraft manufacturer woes are stunting the growth of major airlines, which is sending ripples through the industry. I think that's the most surprising part to me. But let me talk to you all young pilots here. I've had a couple of people talk to me, especially in our group, like Fly with Caden, Rishi, and Goose, who we played American Truck Simulator with a while ago. Let's talk about this for a second, because it's one of those things you all have to understand. This is always a possibility when you become an airline pilot. There's three things in this industry. There's timing, opportunities, and experience. And unfortunately, only one of those three things you as a pilot can actually control, and that's your experience and qualifications, and I'll get to that in a second. But the first thing is timing. So I've heard it a lot in my career. Oh, you're so lucky. You know, you got in at a good time, which is true. It's luck, but it's also timing. So timing is nothing that we can control. We can't predict, the next pandemic. We can't predict the next economic recession. We can see it coming, but we don't know when the effects are actually going to hit. And unfortunately, the airline industry is the pulse of the economy. So as soon as there's a downturn with us, it's kind of the next thing is going to be the economy. But the timing is you can't really do anything about. So, for example, my timing when I was getting into the industry was right at the beginning of the pilot shortage as the baby boomers from 1950 started hitting the 65-year mark. That's timing. I didn't choose when to get born. I wasn't like, hey, I want to come out this date so that way I'm able to do this at this time. It just worked out that way. But so that's the biggest thing is timing. We can't control that. Airlines can't control that. Nobody can control that. The best thing you can do with timing is plan for the worst case scenario, which is what I always do, whether it's finances or career choices. You always want to plan for your worst case scenario. That's how we prepare for timing. Now, opportunity is a result of timing. But once again, we as pilots don't control opportunity necessarily because the companies, The businesses that are giving you pilot jobs are the ones supplying opportunity. So the opportunity comes as a result of good timing or good times. So, for example, booming industry pre-pandemic, lots of hiring going on, especially at the regional level, and post-pandemic at the major level. Those opportunities are created by the airlines. Once again, we don't have control of them. We don't know when there's going to happen. Like when I got picked up at my major airline, I had no idea. I had my application in there during the pandemic, and I had no idea I was going to get picked up. It was just sitting there, and I was just constantly updating it. So those are the opportunities that come out. So that's more from the business aspect of it, not as employees. Now, the one thing that we can control as pilots and future employees of these airlines is our experience and qualifications. So what that means is, for example, I get told a lot of time, oh, you're lucky. You're lucky you got into, Envoy it's so early on. You're lucky you got into your current major. It's so long. Part of the reason I was able to do that, and a lot of my fellow classmates are the youngins in my group that are able to do that, is we worked really hard to make sure that when the opportunity knocked, we were qualified and experienced enough to seize that opportunity. So I just don't want to discount the fact that, oh, you're just lucky, the timing, everything. No, there was hard work associated with that. For example, when I went to Envoy 9 months after graduation, after graduating from college, that's because I was working my butt off in college. My senior year, I was working 5 jobs, including flight instructing, as well as going to school and finishing up my undergrad degree. So that's the point I'm trying to make is those are the 3 things, and there's only really one thing you can control, and that is yourself and your qualifications and your experience. So if you work hard, yeah, you may be sitting at the flight school or regional a bit longer than you anticipated, but you have the qualifications to seize the opportunity when it does come. So to those young pilots out there and people who are just getting into the industry thinking, well, should I really do this if they're furloughing again after... I hate to say it to you, it's going to happen in your career. I was lucky. I was 5 years into my career. I had my first series of furlough and downturn with the pandemic. Now, of 7 years into my career, I'm seeing the second set of furloughs for aircraft manufacturing and stuff like that, and resizing because of the lack of deliveries from Boeing. So it's going to happen in your career, but the one thing you can control is your experience and your qualifications. So make sure you work hard, study hard, get those qualifications, and get ready to seize the opportunity. You don't want to see the opportunity and then rush to get the qualifications. You want to have the qualifications for when the opportunity presents itself so you can just hand in your application and ride the wave. So that is Captain Zabil, a little bit of wisdom for being an airline pilot for 7 years, 14 years. Sorry, Tommy, I forgot to transition you in. But you've been around longer than I have, Tommy. So you've been around for like the furloughs in the 80s. I was young, I didn't understand what was going on. But the 9/11 furloughs, 2008 furloughs for the recession, which lasted 5 years. That's, I think, one of the longest furloughs out there. So have you, in your memory, do you ever remember a furlough happening because of an aircraft manufacturer failure to deliver aircraft? I think this is the first.
I don't know. I remember furloughs in the 80s as well. Not as big. I was a kid, so it might have been from manufacturer. One of the other things that I do remember is I remember as a kid the massive air traffic controller layoffs that
I remember
countrywide.
that,
I actually worked with 2 paramedics when I
they were
got
ATC.
cleaned. Yeah, they were. One of them was New York Tracon, the other one was New York Center, and they were paramedics at the time. And even though they were able to get their jobs back, they never went. But I do remember, especially at Kennedy, growing up so close to Kennedy, some of the little fly-by-night regionals that come and go, where the pilots were living locally and then all of a sudden gone because the airline
disappeared,
laid them off. And literally, but I couldn't be 100% sure if it was because of the rippling effect of not having aircraft delivered.
Yeah, it's a first for me because, even going through college, going through my economic classes and airline classes, understanding that, stuff like natural disasters, pandemics, acts of terrorism like 9/11, that could cause ripples in the industry, which
Yep.
would make furloughs possible. So I remember 9/11. Economic recession is always the big one. Economic troubles is always the big one. Um, so and then when the pandemic, it was specific. It's because the COVID-19 disease was specific to travel. That's how it spread, was by traveling all over the place. So it was one of those things where it's like the first time a pandemic or like an illness specifically focused because of traveling and its spread caused a downturn in the industry. But I didn't expect Boeing issues, or not even Boeing, Spirit and Airbus issues with A320neo and their engines. I didn't expect stuff like that. I mean, it makes sense because they don't have the aircraft for the pilots to fly, but I wasn't anticipating it to cause furloughs, if that made sense. I figured
No,
they
it
would just like
does.
adjust their hiring targets.
It does. It does. And then, you know what? When it comes to Spirit, like you commute with a captain from Spirit, right?
Yeah.
I've gamed with a pilot from Spirit. He's a mutual friend. He's in our Discord. He's a good guy. And he's one of my people. Now, fellow New Yorker, even though he's from Long Island, but he's still one of my people. And I haven't had an opportunity to speak to him, but like, when you're playing Call of Duty with someone and they're facing something like that, that's one of the times I actually choose to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah,
But
it's not fun. Yeah.
no,
It's a,
no. And,
no.
hopefully Spirit comes out of this. I still personally don't agree with the DOJ decision with the JetBlue
Yeah.
thing, but then again, there's not much I could do to it
You
except
can't do
voice my
anything.
personal
Yeah.
opinion on our show.
Yeah.
So hopefully they weather that storm well. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still waiting for Spirit's corporate restructuring. If they
Yep.
follow that corporate America, and that's one of the things people don't understand too. This ripple down effect, if you look into business and economics class, this is business and economics 101. Now, even though you work for a major United States based airline, it's still corporate.
Yeah, it's a
It's,
business. It's
and they
100% a
all
business.
seem to follow, even my employer. Like my employer's business plan is not all that different from yours. The difference is we don't buy things, we lease everything.
Yeah. It's different. It's a different business plan. And like I said to the young pilots out there that are wondering, is this is this really a good idea? It's gonna happen, but like I said, those three things: timing you can't control, but it's there. So always plan for the worst if you can. Opportunities, we don't really see that. That's more from an airline side, but you got to be prepared for opportunities. But what you can control are your qualifications and experience to be able to seize those opportunities and the good times. So as long as you do those things and persevere, you'll be good.
Yeah, even if that
So
means a little bit more time in the regionals.
yep, it happens, you know. So it's part of being an airline pilot. You got to prepare for it. But with that being said, we're going to transition to some more lighthearted news involving aviation. Tommy D has been talking about this for months. The PMD 777 has finally come out. Tommy has gotten to fly it quite a bit, haven't you, on Microsoft Flight Simulator?
It's the only sim aircraft I've flown for almost a month now.
There you go. So Tommy D has firsthand experience flying the brand new PMD 777. I have not purchased it. So Tommy today for our gaming news is going to give you a firsthand review of the PMDG Boeing 777.
Mhm. So just like Bill said, I've been talking about it for months. We've been waiting for the release. Finally, the release date comes. It took me 3 hours to actually download the aircraft, but it was well worth the wait. Um, PMDG was having problems delivering the product to the customer. If you read the actual releases in the articles and you just don't go flying off at the mouth, it wasn't PMDG's issue. First of all, it was their third party server that deals with that. But once I got her downloaded, she was ready to go. It took me 2.5 hours to work everything through the FMC and uh, set it up the way I want it. Normally cold and dark, I'm only connected to ground power. Since it's a wide body, it's two plug ground power. But enough of that. There's some of the features with this aircraft. One, it hand flies amazing. I hand flew it a dozen times already on a 20-mile final. I hand fly it up to 20,000 feet. It's simulated to handle like a wide body. So I give this wheel a little bit left and it takes a minute. It's sluggish, the way it goes, and uh, but it's very, very stable. There's not a whole lot of play with it when it comes to your flight controls dialed in. One of the features with this is now for the 7.3s, you need the downloader to link your Navigraph. Once your Navigraph account is linked, you go into the EFB that's in the 777. You choose that flight plan. You go down into your FMS, and you're able to choose that flight plan, and it all auto links. Like they're trying to make it like a real world ACARS where everything is imported, including the last little details. One little detail is the SDL temperature, which Bill and I actually spoke about on Call of Duty yesterday. But uh, everything is done for you. I have not done a video review of this product, because when I like to fly it for about a month and learn everything it is. One of the other features is it comes, if you have a Hoppy account, the aircraft is CP DLC capable. I tested it out with an Albuquerque controller, and it works phenomenal. I was talking with him on voice, but he was a departure controller, and I was the only aircraft in the airspace. So we were talking about it, and um, there's certain information. I'm going to be actually doing a video in the upcoming week on how to uplink to the CPDLC, how to use it, what information you need to put in on it. Now, one of the things is expect to see me simming in Europe a little bit more, because on VATSIM, it's a little bit widely used there. And the United States, it's kind of here and there. But it was fun. It was really another level of immersion, and it was absolutely great. Like we were the controller actually sat with me for a good 15 to 20 minutes running all the different tests. And you run it right through your middle screen in the aircraft. So you got both FMS. There's another screen where your checklists and your CPDLC. You could put anything you want there. Everything is almost fully customizable. The windows open. Um, I tested it today. If you're sitting in a passenger view, like when I'm streaming and we're just at cruise altitude, hanging out and talking, when you're looking out the window and you're over the wing, when I start dropping flap or bringing flap up, you actually hear the hydraulics going on. The rear wheels articulate. So if I'm turning left, you see the wheels turning, their main gear turning. They really, really poured so much into this aircraft, and it's still coming. They just released their third very small update to clear up some of the geometry and flight instrument control looks a lot cleaner. It's a lot prettier. One of the other things, they have another one coming. They yet to have release notes on that one just yet, but Randazzo keeps on saying this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. I mean, all in all, $77 for what they packed into this aircraft is a steal. If you're a flight simmer, if you're into wide bodies, and let me tell you something, just because it's a wide body does not necessarily mean you need to do, over the pond or these transcon, transatlantic, transpacific flights. I've been knocking around with this thing like it's a 737, 400 by 100 nautical mile flights. Today I flew it into Denver. I brought it up to its altitude ceiling of 42,000 feet, and it behaved amazingly. I am very impressed, even though I was very impatient on PMDG to release this product. But PMDG, very good, guys. And next, we're gonna have to see if we can get Bill to go into the wide body, and maybe your controls will be able to do a shared flight deck on that.
I don't know. I've talked to Tommy about this a lot in real life. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever gonna go wide body. It's the opportunity's there, but right now, super senior in Chicago, and I'd be going 7.8. So maybe if they come out with the 7.8, I'd do it. Buy the 7.8 and do that with you. I don't know. 777, maybe. We'll see. A lot of people know I don't do. The only reason I do flight sim is to flight sim with Tommy when we do the shared flight deck. That's the only reason I would flight sim. Usually I don't like coming home and flight simming. And also our group flights, our non 737 group flights.
Yeah, like the more general aviation.
Yeah, stuff that I don't get to do on the day-to-day, like landing on aircraft carriers. That was a funny stream. But yeah, I can't do. If I were just come home by myself and do 737 stuff, I'd go absolutely insane.
Oh, yeah, that
But
wouldn't
maybe.
burn you out at all.
Oh yeah. But maybe in the future we'll see. But this next segment, Tommy and I are going to do together. We're going to be talking about some automotive news here. Um, as everybody knows, I've bought my truck. Let me see if I can pop it up like this. No. It looks good. What looks good? What looks good? We'll do that, or that. We'll just do that. Sorry, none of these quite fit the pictures, but I just bought my truck, the 2024 Nissan Titan Pro 4X, and been driving it, getting stuff ready for review. The review is going to be coming a little bit later than anticipated, largely because it is so freaking hot right now that like I tried filming in my garage to control the lighting and to try to stay cool while I was trying to do the video review of it, and my goodness, I kid you not, about 2 minutes into that video, I was drenched in sweat. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pause this, and when it gets a little bit cooler, especially for my drone, because I want to do some drone shots with it, but the battery life, it just sucks the battery life when it's super hot outside. But anyways, this is the 2024 coolest looking trucks, according to the Motor Trend magazine. Now, Tommy has no idea what they are. I've kind of seen them. But what we're going to do is we're going to go down each picture here, and I want to get our honest reaction to whether or not we agree with if it looks cool or not. So I will say some of these look good, and some of them I'm just like, I don't know how they made the list. And spoiler alert, my truck did not make the list, so I was extremely upset about that because I think my truck is pretty slick looking. But Tommy, you ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, so the first one, they say this is the coolest looking truck, is the GMC Sierra AT4X. What do you think? You think that looks cool?
All right, my personal thing, that is not the coolest truck I've ever seen. Coming
No,
up with this year. It's not a bad looking truck. It looks to be all LED around the headlights as well, from what I'm seeing in the picture.
I'm seeing like running. I think the running lights are LED. Well, yeah, maybe the main lights are LED.
It's not bad. It's a decent looking truck, but it's not setting off any alarms for me.
Well, no. Okay, so when I see this, I see generic truck. I hate to say it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's the generic, like clunky truck, which General Motors, I guess. And what I don't like is, the headlights are too busy, in my opinion.
The whole
You
front
got
end
the
is very busy.
you got the wraparound LED running lights. You see that on the outside, right?
Yeah.
And then not encompassed. This is the part that irritates me. Not encompassed in the LED running lights are the the indicators back behind it. Why would you not include it in the cluster? So you got like a half running daylight or LED light, which is dumb. And honestly, when they do that, that usually means that the indicators are not LED, that they're standard incandescent, or they're the standard light bulbs. So now you got a mix between kind of bright versus bam bright. So you got a mismatch. So at night it's going to look kind of dumb.
The only thing positive I got to say about this is the one thing I do like is the lower bumper right above the cowling. I do like the two tow hooks with the fog lights right there, in case you're yanking something at night.
Yeah, I would say the fog lights could be. I guess fog lights have to be low, but maybe a little bit more spaced out. But maybe I can't see it. Is there a skid plate on this?
I'm sure there is. If it's the 4x4 package, I'm sure it's got one.
Yeah, because I would say it'd be stupid to have tow hooks in an off-road package without a skid plate. That's the whole point. And also, are these base runners over here, the steps, are they fold up, or that's just really low profile?
I think they're low profile. Almost looks like the not really the pipe, but the illusion of the pipe with the flattened.
Maybe, because it doesn't look like there's much to step on it. That's my next thing. And also the mirrors. What the heck is going on with the mirror? If you're
I don't know. That's just a mess.
If it's like extended, then get a bigger mirror. Surface area is better than that part I just don't like. So I don't necessarily agree with it. I think it's kind of stereotypical. Like my truck, why I like my Nissan is it looks more sporty. It looks good. So, okay, so that's number one. You ready for number two? I think you're gonna absolutely hate this one. Number two is the Rivian R1T. That thing's garbage. What is that?
Who
What?
thought
I'm
this was a
sorry.
good idea?
Yeah, Tommy. I'm sorry, Tommy.
What
What do you
is
think of
that?
it? It's a
Who
Rivian.
manufactured this?
Rivian. It's the new electric car company here in the United States. Rivian. This is the ugliest
Wow.
car I've ever
Wow.
seen. And I've seen them. They're here where I live. I see them in Chicago all the time. So I'm sorry if you drive a Rivian. SUV is not so bad, but trucks, like, come on, what is this? I
That
see. Okay, so I see a skid bar or a skid plate. Sorry, tow hooks. Um, interesting. Are those fog lights underneath, like underneath the main, like by the grill? Is that what that is? I don't know what that is. I think those are grills or fog lights. These lights don't look like they do. These lights look more aesthetic than anything. I don't know how bright they actually are because I've never seen one at night. But honestly, it looks like a Jeep Gladiator from space is what it looks like, honestly. So I don't know. I'm
ugh.
not too big of a fan of the Rivian. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not too
I mean, I'm
big.
not gonna lie. I like that shade of gray.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Well,
good
yeah, the
looking
gray's
shade of
nice.
gray.
Yeah.
What I those of us who watch car racing now, Bill's an F1 guy, but I'm sure you've watched NASCAR.
Yeah.
But now you see the headlights, the way that looks like NASCAR decaling to me.
Yeah, I've like I said, I've seen these in real life, and I've never seen them at night, so I don't know how bright they are, but they don't look like they're very efficient lights.
I don't know. And there's also no, I mean, I'm vertically challenged, so there I would need, you know, if it looks like what comes factory with maybe a 3-inch lift. Hard to judge
Yeah,
from the picture, but there's definitely a lift package in there.
yeah,
And I would need a pipe or some sort of what do you call it to get up into the vehicle.
yeah.
But
Running a running board. Yeah,
yeah, I've got to tell you, my money would not, and I'm not bashing people who do own it, but
no,
that's
that's
just not for me.
just your artistic choices. All
Yeah.
right, number 3 is the Chevy Colorado. Okay, this. Go ahead, Tommy. What are your first impressions? This looks like
It
their ZR2, which is the off road.
it does, and it's a decent looking truck. Now I've said it once, and it's nothing against Chevy. Chevy's a good American made company. I'm just not a Chevy guy, unless it
I'm not.
comes to the Camaro. But
Well,
I do. That's a heavy duty skid plate too.
I mean, this
So
is when I see this, I think of the RC Bandito car from GTA 5, but
yeah,
that's what it looks like. It looks like a little
yeah.
RC car.
But let
But
me
you
tell
want
you
to talk about
something. It's a rugged looking truck, man. It looks like you could
it's
beat that thing
mean.
on a trail.
It looks mean. Now, if I saw this zipping around New York City, I'd be like, "Why do you have this truck? What's the point of this?" But out on the back road stuff, this is a mean looking truck. I'm also a huge sucker for blue, so the blue and black looks really good. I wish the skid plate was dark to kind of match the bumper. But it is what it is. That's how my truck is too. My truck has a silver skid plate on it, and the red hooks look really cool. It's all the red and blue is a good complement. I see LED lights. I don't see any fog lights. Do you? Or is
What
that
it
what's down on the
if you look
bumper?
right underneath the blue,
Yeah.
directly above the tow hooks,
Are those
those
fog
might be
lights?
like very small LED fogs, or it
Okay.
might be like if it comes part of the tow package just to illuminate.
Okay. Yeah, I would. I wouldn't say this is too bad. I wouldn't drive it. Chevy Colorados are small trucks. I'm a big guy, so those two unfortunately don't mix together. But it's a mean looking truck. I like it. But like I said, it's one of those things. It's like little man syndrome. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it looks a lot bigger than it is, especially from this angle. Because Chevy Colorados are not big trucks, so it's a very mean look for a very small truck. Almost looks like a rally truck. Is what it looks like. So if that's the look you're going for, then definitely. The next one, okay, the Ford Maverick trimmer.
Not terrible looking. Not
The
terrible. What is?
silence leading up to that is probably the best way I can explain how I feel about this truck. It's not. It's a generic. To me, it just looks like a generic truck. The way nowadays you can tell it's a trimmer is it has the yellow or the yellow trim on
Yeah,
it. Um, but do they even sell Mavericks in the United States? I thought they stopped selling them. Isn't it just the Ranger?
I
Is
think
this
it's
not
just the
a
Ranger Because
Okay,
I've
so
never
this may
seen one on the road near me, and there are a lot of people that have trucks where I live. Because
but this is
10 minutes
Motor
away, you're in the
Trend,
mountains.
Motor Trend USA. So I don't know how that works, but yeah, this doesn't scream anything to me. It doesn't for me. It's not a head turner. Um, it's got the same basic front, although the grill looks pretty cool. I don't know what's going on there. The grill looks pretty cool. What is going on with the lights? You got I guess the LEDs running on top. What are the three underneath? Are those your
Well,
fog
the
lights?
outer ones are probably the directionals,
Yeah.
even though they look a little far
Yeah, I
forward.
don't know what's going.
I
Yeah.
don't know what's up with that. Who knows? Like the way they're doing it now, they might have all sorts of switches. You may actually have like
Is that technically a light bar? Would that be like a
yeah,
light bar,
it
but in your?
could be. I thought that's like if you see where the runners are, like right above the Ford emblem.
Yeah.
I mean that's part of the grill, but I mean I guess that could be like a one of those LED light bars that people put on their roll bars to off road.
Yeah,
But
maybe. And then they also I like the running lights on the down by the wheel. That's
yeah,
awesome. I like
yep,
those.
I do
Um,
like that feature.
you got bumper colored skid plate, which I appreciate. Can't tell if that's metal though. I'm assuming that's a plastic skid plate's kind of useless in my opinion. But um, my only other issue is clearance. This thing doesn't have a whole lot of clearance. Look how close that is to the ground. So you could maybe
Yeah,
like
yeah.
off road a couple of hill like dirt piles maybe. But overall, I mean, it's not bad. It looks like a mini F-150. Once again, it's one of their smaller trucks, so it's not a big truck. But for me, it's just there's nothing like about it. It's just like okay, it's a truck. So, anyways, all right. The next one here is the Nissan Frontier Hardbody. I don't know. I've never been a fan of whatever these are up on the truck bed. What are those? Like a roll
Yeah, I'm
cage or
not.
a back
I
bars?
wish we could see the front end of that.
Yeah. So one thing I really do like about the Nissan truck lineup is, like, for example, if you were to go look at a Chevy Colorado, or if you were to go look at a Ford Ranger, and then you look at an F-150, or you look at a Chevy Silverado, they look different. I mean, the little trucks for Chevy and Ford, they look like cars. You could tell it's a small truck. They don't look like trucks. They look like cars with a pickup bed, right?
Yeah.
Like an old El Camino, I think is what they're called. It's kind of what they look like. The vibe that I get. I've never liked that. But the one thing I do like about Nissan Frontiers, if you look at them, they're just a miniature version of the Nissan Titan. I mean, it's the only truck that I know of, like small truck, that looks like a big truck. Like you look at the front and you're like, oh wait, is that a Frontier or is that a Titan? The only way you can really tell is just by the size. Titan's a lot bigger than a Frontier. So that's that's what I like about the Nissan Frontier is if you can either want to afford a truck, or like my last house, the garage was too small, so a Nissan Frontier was gonna be the only thing that fit inside of it. It just, if you need it for those reasons, or you don't need the big capacity, and you can fit inside of it, it looks like a normal pickup truck. It's just smaller. So, couple things though on this one. I'm not big fan of the roll bars or whatever those things are on the back. I never understood those. But I guess they're more for utility than anything. I wish the rims were blacked out to match the black. There's a lot of black trim, and then you got these just silver tires or silver wheels.
I don't like those wheel covers at all. If anything, give me like a beefy truck rim.
Yeah, like my truck is black, and since it's the Pro 4X, it has the red lava red trim all over the place. So like the Nissan badge is lava red. And then my tires are 18-inch steel alloy rims, and they're black with the red or the lava red Nissan logo in the middle. So it looks sick because it's black and red. But this is just kind of a mismatch. Then again, this could be somebody's just personal vehicle with new wheels on it. But it's not bad. I personally don't like this specific layout, but Nissan Frontiers in general are actually not very bad.
In comparison to what we've seen, this is
it's not bad.
One of the better looking ones as opposed to that other thing.
Rivian. Well, you think that one's worse. You ready for this?
Ready
for this?
Rivian, you're out of the basement.
Oh, I think I just got nauseous looking at this thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't take away from people who you're either a Jeep person or you're not. This guy definitely is not. Um, I understand, you know, you would see me driving a Willys Jeep way quicker than you'll see me driving something like this. Although I do like the color. I do like the
Yeah, the
color of
color.
it.
Yeah, the color's good. I just don't. It looks like a utility vehicle.
Yeah.
It doesn't look. It looks like something that can maybe go 30 miles an hour before the wheels start falling off and everything starts shimming, and then your spine is left on the side of the road. So I don't know. I've never been a Jeep fan. The girl I dated in college, her family had a '94 Jeep Wrangler that we used to take off roading, and they would literally load it up on the trailer to get it out to where we were going mudding and off roading because it wasn't reliable enough to make the drive by itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
but
just it's a Jeep thing. I wish I had the video. There's this funny TikTok video about this guy driving a Jeep, and it's being very sarcastic, I guess, or satirical about it. But yeah, it's just I don't understand Jeeps. I've seen TikTok videos where people are buying $48,000 brand new Jeeps and they don't even get power locks or power roll up windows. Like, what are you buying the Jeep for other than the fact that it's a Jeep? So
right.
I don't know. I
You're
think
paying
part
for
of
that
my
name.
bias, yes, I think part of my bias is because I don't like Jeeps to begin with. But then you throw something like this, and it's just ugly. It's just no, it's
Yeah, it's
trying
straight
too
up
hard to
not.
be a
No.
truck.
Yeah.
So Jeep, stay in your lane. But I've seen plenty of these. There's people out there that love these things, unfortunately. But so yeah, so I think this one takes the cake for the most ugly.
Yeah, it knocked Rivian out of the basement for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the next one is the GMC Canyon, which I think is just the miniature version of the GM Sierra, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
it's not a
So
bad
this
looking
is like
truck.
yeah. So this is like the Chevy Colorado of GMC. Um, and like I said, we talked about before, this has a very kind of mean stance to it. Um, Definitely off roady. Reminds me of like a little RC car. Um, but yeah, it's got the really nice skid plate, red lava toe, or the red hooks up front, which is a trending thing. Every freaking truck I see on the road nowadays have red toe hooks. But guess what? My truck looks the best with them. Anyways, so the red, yeah. So the red, I guess it matches the emblem, but I guess red is the standard. The skid plate is fine with the silver. With the white, it kind of matches okay. The black accents are cool, but I feel like they're introducing too many colors. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like the red hooks, the silver, but I mean, I guess the skid plate doesn't come in black because that'd be sick if it was just straight black and you get kind of the piano
Yeah,
color
you'd have
scheme.
to get like a matte black aftermarket
Yeah,
because
skid
that's what
plate.
I would
So
personally do. Mine would be matte black.
matte black. Yeah, I love matte black. So I really do like the black accents. The grill is interesting. What I do like though is the light setup. You got your LED running that seems to be all in one piece. Some lower, I guess those are fog lights again down here, kind of like the Colorado. The big old beefy all terrain tires with proper the black right there, and then I also love the trim, or I guess whatever these are called, around the wheels, and they have the running lights on them, which is nice.
Hmm.
I like that. And the sunroof. The other ones, like my truck has a full moonroof or whatever you call it. Not the reason I purchased it. I honestly didn't want to have a truck with a moonroof because I literally park it at the airport for days at a time, and sometimes it's uncovered, so hail and stuff. Not my personal thing, but my wife absolutely loves that feature on the truck because she can get her sun while we're driving, and I can keep the air conditioning while I'm sunburning. It's perfect for her. So
That sounds like
no,
a win-win.
for her, yeah, for her. But I don't mind this one. This one has kind of a mean, aggressive look to it. Like I said, if I saw it rolling around New York City in Lower Manhattan, be like, what? Why are you
Right.
driving through Central Park with the thing? But I mean, it's like it's not a bad looking truck, not at all. I think I honestly would probably prefer this compared to a Nissan Frontier, the hard body that we
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
not a bad looking truck. The only thing I would want is I would want a running board option on that, even if it's a pipe, you know,
yeah,
aftermarket.
because I like running boards. The main reason I got running boards on my truck is because my wife's 5'3". So it was a requirement
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she had already had a hard enough time getting up in other trucks that we rented, when we traveled and stuff. So I had to get the running boards for it. Plus, my running boards have the spray red liner
Hmm.
type texture to it, so they're anti-slip. And on the side in lava red, it says Titan. It looks awesome. It has a Titan symbol on it too. Amazing. I can't wait to do the review on it, but it's an awesome looking truck, which why it upsets me that it wasn't on this list. It is a good looking truck. All right. The next one, you ready for this? This is one of the stupidest cars I've ever seen. The Hyundai Santa Cruz.
They listed that as a truck.
Just call it the El Camino 2024. That's what it is. It's literally a sedan with you cut. It's a station wagon where you cut out the back. That is, yeah. So not my favorite. There's just it's the design. I think if I remember correctly, the Santa Cruz and the Honda Ridgeline, which thank God that didn't make this, they're supposed to be like urban trucks, which I guess they're smaller, but the whole point of a truck is because it's bigger. It's the payload to be able to transport the stuff. But yeah, this just looks like a station wagon where they cut off the back.
Yeah.
Not my
urban truck. They showed up there with jumbo shrimp.
Jumbo shrimp, yeah, exactly. Not my favorite, but so this
I do like the wheel stuff.
The wheels are nice, yes. Yeah. They do have running boards, even though it's like 2 inches off the ground. They do have running boards.
Yeah, and that's pretty much where it ends for me with this vehicle.
Oh my god! So I would say right now the ugliest is the Jeep Gladiator, followed by the Rivian, and then this one is probably above the Rivian. I don't like this one, so Rivian, and then bringing up the rear is the GMC Hummer EV.
All right.
Okay. Yep. So talk to me, Tommy.
One good thing in the tailgate is you have that little section there for the fold down. You can just chuck something in there, or maybe it has the ladder to come up into it.
The assistant step.
Yeah, I have now. This looks to be more of like an H3 body style?
I think that's what it looks like.
So now I understand it's the EV and a different model, but when I first became a supervisor at my last stop in EMS, the command vehicle for the supervisors was an H2. Now, granted, there was some customizing in the front of it. It is not all that comfortable of a vehicle.
No, it's not.
It really isn't. You can beat it 19 different ways to Sunday off road. Like, it will take a beating. But I mean, this is not a bad looking vehicle, but not something I like. From personal, you'll never ever if you see me driving a Hummer, I won it at the casino.
Yeah, so like with this, honestly, like I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Hummer to begin with. I will appreciate you can see it along the edges where they're trying to round it out, make it a little more smooth, make it a luxury type vehicle. So I could see it. It's just one, I've never liked Hummers. Two, this one's too blocky. Like there is like too blocky, and then there is like normal trucks, and then there is something ridiculous like the Cruise. This definitely I would not say is the most ugly. I would say this probably goes to the end of my list for the most ugly because it's still not bad looking.
No,
the fact that it's an EV gives it extra points. So
also Hummer comes with like this stigmata of, it's a Hummer. Me personally, I think Hummer should have just stayed, and I believe Hummer body style, it's GM. I believe it's GM. Personally, I get it. They wanted to get into the consumer market. They probably just should have stayed military.
Well, and the way I hate to say, I think of when I see GMC trucks and everything, is the first word of that is general, and that is how the designs feel to me. Is generic for me. There's nothing groundbreaking about them for me personally. That's why I don't necessarily like GMCs, and they're expensive. But that was a look at. We took some time to do that one. I liked doing that because that was our honest reaction to these trucks between Tommy and I. So with that being said, we're wrapping that up. So let us know what you all think in the comments. Let us know which one you think is the ugliest or which one is the prettiest. Like I said, I'm really upset my Nissan didn't make it. My Titan Pro 4X didn't make it. Actually, let me see if I can find it real quick. Hold on. So you guys can see my beauty. Let's see. Nissan Titan Pro 4X. Let's see if it'll pop up here. Images. Yeah, I guess that'll do. Let's see if this pops up. There we go. Kind of. Maybe I can... Oh, can I view the image? There we go. It's a little bit better. Couple things it's missing is... Oh, no, it's back there. Mine... So, what the heck? This isn't exactly what I have. So, lava red. It's missing the lava red hooks up here. I have the running board here. But yeah, that's what my truck looks like. And I don't have the tow mirrors. I don't have the big old wide tow mirrors. So I like this one because it's a little more... it has sporty. You can see what I'm talking about. It encompasses the LED running lights, encompasses the entire freaking light package. And also you got everything's LED. You got big fog lights. And also it has a naturally aspirated V8 engine, which is one of the last few that exists. I think Toyota is the only one that has that. And I think it tows up to 9,200 pounds, which is pretty good. And then your 18. I wish the tires were a little bit bigger, but I mean they suit the purpose. They're good riding tires. So, but yeah, that's what my truck looks like. But with a little more, yeah, there's a couple more features on there that aren't on this picture. But Tommy's big. I'm not. All right. But with that being said, we're going to be moving on to our favorite segment of the show, Jargon in a Jiffy. For those of you that are new to the show or maybe forgot, Jargon in a Jiffy is a word game that Tommy and I play where we take industry terms from our careers, whether Tommy's being from his current career as a safety specialist or his previous career as an EMT and mine from the airline industry. We say the word, say it in a sentence, and it's up to the other host to guess what the word means. And the primary reason we do this is to educate you all on the type, to educate you all on terms that are used in our industry so they're less intimidating when you get into our career fields, if that's what you want to do. So, Tommy D, why don't you take it away? It's been a second since we've done this, so why don't you start off?
Okay. The word I'm going forward with today is ischemia. Ischemia. Okay. Yep. And the sentence will be, we need to run you over to the doctor because I think your stomach pain is as a result of ischemia. So we're going to take you to the doctor today because I think your stomach ache is the result of some sort of ischemia.
Some sort of ischemia. Does it have anything to do with bacteria?
No, it does sound like it though, don't it?
It definitely does. That's why.
It's like, oh,
so
ischemia. I need a shot.
Yeah, really. Is ischemia a psychological illness?
No. It's
I was thinking like schizophrenia, ischemia.
Nope, it isn't anything to do with mental health at all. It has to actually do with the vessels.
Like blood vessels?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I'm gonna have to throw the flag because it's stomach issue. I have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
Yeah, and then the reason why this word popped I've been waiting to use it all week is because of what had happened with us last week. So ischemic pain is generally caused by a blockage in an artery.
So ischemia means what?
Ischemia is the pain that results from the blockage of a blood vessel, usually an artery, because the artery is carrying.
There was no way I was gonna be able to get that. There's no way. All right. Well, that was a good one. Yeah, there was no way I was gonna get that. Even you could have just took me by the hand and walked me down that lane. I would have never guessed that's what that meant.
No, because just like you said, when you first hear it, it sounds like you're going to be taking penicillin for 10 days.
Well, and the fact that it's not an actual ailment, it's a result of something else happening. Yeah, I would have never gotten it. There's no way. There's no way. But mine is obviously from the airline career is FAP. It's an acronym, FAP. I always try to be fully configured by the FAP for a stabilized approach. FAP.
FAP. Final approach fix.
Where's the F? Where's Where does the F come from? Final approach, FAP, not FAF, FAP.
All right, we'll go with final approach point.
Okay.
No, I know there is a certain point. It's a point that you want to be fully configured and stable.
So let me time out so we can get your mind rolling. So it is final approach point, but what is a final approach point? So you got the acronym right. It is a point, final approach point. But what is it?
The final approach point is at the beginning of, well, no, not necessarily the beginning, but there's a point on the final approach that, okay, if you normally a GPS fix, like an RNAV point, that like point ABC is 7.2 miles from the end of the runway. We want to be fully configured and stable at that point in case we need to go around or we have some sort of failure, blah, blah, blah.
Kind of. So this is where I'm going to get you. So you got the name, but not quite the definition.
Okay.
Did you know there's a difference between final approach fix and final approach point? They're two different things.
Oh, well, I'm going to know this in a minute. Keep going.
Yeah. So final approach point is the point at which you begin the final segment of a precision approach. So that is a glide slope intercept. So if you look at an approach plate, you'll notice that there's a localizer feather on the plan view, the top down, a little localizer feather. But if you also look at the profile view, which is down the side, the one just below that, the little strip, you'll notice a feather as well, which is the glide slope feather, right? So the final approach point, the final approach begins when you intercept the glide path at the final approach or at the final approach altitude, right? So you always have a denoted minimum altitude to intercept the glide slope, right? Well, technically the final approach point is where you touch and intercept the glide slope at that altitude. Now, a lot of times final approach point and final approach fix are interchangeable because the glide slope intercepts at the same time at that point on the chart. So that is also denoted with the Maltese cross, right? You see that all the time. That's the final approach fix. The difference is the final approach fix is for non-precision approaches. Final approach fixes are where you begin your descent to your final MDA or your minimum descent altitude. So, but there are some approaches out there where your final approach point, where you would intercept the glide slope on the localizer, is different than the final approach fix. And generally that's because of terrain and other obstacles affecting the descent path of a non-precision approach from the final approach fix. So point, remember precision, final approach point, precision. So final approach, the point at where your final approach begins is where at the published altitude you intercept the glide slope. That is the final approach point. Final approach fix is where you begin your final descent to the minimum descent altitude or the minimums for the non-precision approach from the last altitude. And the final approach fix is generally, and even glide slope intercept is generally about 5 miles out, usually 1,500 feet above ground level is usually where it is. So that's the difference between, like I said, a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it too, I'll just use final approach fix interchangeably. Or nowadays when I give my briefing, I am calling it final approach point, or I'll say glide slope intercept to be explicitly clear to whoever I'm briefing it to. Glide slope intercept will be at this altitude at this fix. And the fix is often determined by not in a GPS, because final approach point, GPS approaches are not precision. So we're talking ILSs. So it's based off DME, distance from the airport. If you're using a GPS approach, that's always going to be a final approach fix because GPS approaches are considered non-precision.
Copy. That's actually pretty cool. That was a good one.
And like I said, if you want to nickel and dime a pilot, ask them the difference between a final approach point and a final approach fix. Because, like I said, we use it interchangeably, and a lot of times that's because it is. But there, in the rare instances, like I want to say Bozeman, Montana may be one, where your glide slope intercept point or your final approach point was actually different than your final approach fix. Two different things.
Well, Bozeman, Montana, I can understand. Terrain.
Yeah, like I said, usually it has to do with terrain, because they don't want you necessarily starting your descent from the final approach fix and non-precision, because there's no vertical guidance in non-precision, so you don't hit terrain. So, like I said, so next time you're looking at an approach plate, like tonight when you're doing Friday Night Ops, look at the localizer, but then look at the profile view, and there should be a glide slope feather on the actual profile view, and where that intercepts the last or the final altitude, the final approach fix altitude, if you will, or final altitude, that's technically the final approach point.
Oh, I'm gonna be throwing that out tonight.
Yep. Yeah. It's like I said, we use final approach fix interchangeably with that all the time. So if you say final approach fix instead of final approach point, nobody's gonna get it to you. But that's just like a minutia thing. So
I like it. That was good.
Yeah. All right. So yep, good safety stand. We both learned something. Tommy had me stumped right off the bat. But up next, we're gonna be talking about safety stand down, where Tommy and I talk about and discuss an accident in the past that has affected the airline industry some way nowadays. So the important thing to note is that regulation change in the United States with airlines always are as a result, generally speaking, of an accident, or as we like to say, the FARs or regulations. You good over there, Tommy? Slamming your cup around. Are as a result of or are written in blood because they're as a result of an accident. So today we're going to be talking about United Airlines Flight 227 in Salt Lake City on November 11th, 1965. Luckily, this is a short one. But United Airlines Flight 227 was a Boeing 727 that crashed upon an attempted landing at Salt Lake City Airport. The captain failed to recognize and arrest an excessive sink rate, and on final approach, resulting in touchdown about 335 feet short of the runway. The main landing gear sheared off, causing a breach in the fuselage, and the airplane caught fire while sliding down and off the right side of the runway. Failure of the main landing gear ruptured fuel lines and generator leads, causing the fire, and the entire roof of the cabin area forward of the fuselage breach was consumed by fire. Of the 85 passengers on board, there were 43 fatalities, and all 6 crew members survived. The Civil Aeronautics Board, or CAB at the time, which later became FAA, determined that the accident was survivable because none of the passengers actually sustained any traumatic injuries that would have precluded them from escaping the aircraft after the accident. The 43 fatalities were attributed to the fire caused by the broken fuel lines. So the CAB also established, or Civil Aeronautics Board also established, that similar future events could not be ruled out and that the airplane should be designed to have a higher degree of survivability in case of these types of events. So that's what happened. So aircraft landed short. Should have been survivable, but 43 people died because of the fire that ensued afterwards. So, as a result, there was a new section of Part 25, which I've talked about a million times on the show, which is the certification of or basically performance standards for certifying aircraft that are going to be airliners. There was a new addition added to that, Amendment 2515, that said each fuel line within the fuselage must be designed and installed to allow a reasonable degree of deformation and stretching without leakage. In other words, bending without it breaking and spilling fuel everywhere. This regulatory change was as a result of the CAB recommendation that fuel lines be constructed of stainless steel and be of at least a certain thickness, and the intent of the recommendation was to preclude fuel line rupture and fuel leakage in a situation similar to the circumstances of Flight 227, and was based on the fact that a single 5/8 inch diameter stainless steel fuel line remained intact after the accident. So what they did is they went through the actual wreckage and found the certain lines that remained intact during that and used that as the next standard. In reviewing this recommendation, the FAA determined that the fuel line flexibility would provide a more, excuse me. In reviewing the rest, thank you. In reviewing this recommendation, the FAA determined that fuel line flexibility would provide a more positive means to preclude fuel line ruptures, leaks, and therefore adopted this requirement rather than the specific CAB recommendation. So I'll correct myself real quick. It used to be CAB, and I guess the Civil Aeronautics Board became more like the NTSB body after the FAA was implemented. So I've been saying that wrong. But the CAB recommended that, and the FAA adopted that recommendation. I'm sorry, the FAA determined that the fuel line flexibility would provide more positive means to preclude. Okay, so they, rather than the thickness attribute, which is what the CAB recommended, they went more with the flexibility so that the lines could bend without actually rupturing. What do you think about that one, Tommy D?
So the fire wasn't a traumatic injury? Traumatic injuries are a cause of an outside.
Well, not really, because it was the fire is what precluded from them, or the fire is what killed them, if that made sense.
It is. It was, right? Well, I have my opinion on that too, but
well, no, okay. So what happened is the traumatic injury was from the flame, but not from the accident itself.
Right, I understand. So, it's kind of like a secondary.
So, for example, I don't have the pictures, but the article on the FAA website that this is all from their accident database noted 2 other incidents that happened after accidents, similar accidents, and everything was fully intact. Everybody survived, and that was because they were able to get out after the crash. So even if there was technically a fire, they would still be able to get out. But the problem is it slammed to the ground, erupted into fire, and they were killed. So the traumatic injury wasn't caused by the crash, it was caused by the fire. The fire is what precluded or prevented them from getting out of the aircraft.
So, in anywhere in the article, did they have any of the investigative notes, like what the rate was when the aircraft gear touched down? Because I mean, if you think about it, 335
This
feet.
was this was 1965. So there was no,
Yeah, it was nothing.
possibly maybe CVRs. There might have been a very basic form of flight data recorders, but there was no flight aware, there was no flight radar 24, so I have no idea.
Someone had to be able to do math, but
well, I mean, they weren't. The pilots sure weren't calculating when they slammed to the ground. That's for sure.
No, yeah. So someone forgot a decimal point on that one.
Yeah, 335 feet or 335 feet short of the runway.
Which, if you think about it, when you're on final, you blink, you just flew 200 feet.
Well, yeah, I mean, and when a stabilized approach is anywhere from, well, for the 7.3 specifically too, our stabilized approach criteria is bracketing no more than 1,200 feet per minute, but realistically it's about 800 feet per minute depending on how fast your ground speed is. So you're doing that up until you rest the sink rate, and a hard landing, like a right-up hard landing, is 600 feet per minute. So if you don't check the flare or don't realize you're that close to the ground, you're landing at 800 feet per minute.
Yeah.
Which is excessive. So, which is enough to shear off the gear or send it through the wing. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, so what resulted of this was the FAA adopting a regulation saying, hey, in Part 25, that the fuel lines and the fuel system has to have some degree of flexibility to not rupture in case of bended metal and stuff like that. Because the problem was it ruptured and the electrical lines from the generator sparked the fire. So you got to have oxygen, you got to have fuel, oxygen, and a spark, right, to start a fire. So it's just eliminating those things to increase the survivability of the accident, if that made sense. Because they should have been survivable.
That one, because it was probably those tubes years back, just those solid tubes for fuel lines that just
that's what it's the 5/8-inch steel tubes. Yeah, that's what it was. So that's what came of it, is safer fuel systems.
Yeah, that was a good one. That's a shame too. That's my favorite aircraft of all time.
Yeah,
the 7.2.
And unfortunately, as we go through these, like the accidents, you'll see, you're like, ooh, God, that was bad. But that's why aviation is so safe nowadays.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, that's why we're doing it. All right. So up next is going to be viewer Q&A. Let me pull this up. We got K-Bird on Twitch watching. No real questions from him, but he was commenting on the Rivian and the trucks as well. And let's see. I have one. Let's see. Logan said, what are my thoughts on the whole Boeing issues? I kind of directed him in chat. There's a lot of our episodes that have my opinion. And it's not really much of opinion because I don't choose to speculate, but about the Boeing and what's going on with Boeing. So definitely go check those out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. But to summarize, I believe that Boeing needs to be held accountable to make a safe airplane, not only for passengers, but for the flight crews that fly them. If they make a mistake, which they did with the MAX in its initial crash in 2018, they provided a aircraft that had a critical system without redundancy, which is unheard of in the aviation industry, and also chose to exclude important information about the MCAS system in our manuals, leaving us blind to the fact that there was something as dangerous that could happen. So I believe Boeing should 100% be held accountable. Do I think that Boeing aircraft are not safe? I fly Boeings all the time. I have 1,500 hours, been flying the Boeing for 2.5 years. I have luckily, knock on wood, haven't had anything that has really jarred me like, this is an unsafe aircraft. Overall, they're very reliable airplanes. They're workhorses. They've been in the airline industry since 1967. Now, that doesn't mean the 7.3s that are flying around are from 1967. It's just the design has been around since 1967. So I think they have to work out a lot of things to be able to adjust and to make sure that the aircraft that they are manufacturing continue to be safe, if that makes sense. But hold them accountable. But Boeing has had a good history in the past. They just going through a rough time, so they just need to fix it. Let's see. Thanks, Howie, for another 4-month subscription. I just saw that on Twitch. Thank you, Howie. Let's see. Logan did that. Nope, that's it. That's all I got. You got any comments on your side?
Nah, just I'm gonna take a picture and text Bessie to Kelly later on today.
Yeah, I always explain to him that is Bessie. That Bessie is Tommy's cow in the back there, and she is the star of the show. Realistically, she's the co-host, and Tommy's just there so we can.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there's no other live listener Q&As, remember we do this every episode. So if you type in your question at the beginning, we don't get to it. That's because we're waiting for this, so we have content for this segment. But now on to the part that I'm super excited about. We're going to be talking about Geek Out and Freak Out, our weekly discussion where Tommy and I are going to get technical with the tech behind the camera. Well, a lot of times you guys don't get to see the behind the scenes. You don't get to see what is, technically in front of my camera, but behind the camera, to allow us to be able to stream, to be able to produce this show for you. So Tommy and I are going to go through the different specs and geek out about each other's setup, basically. So the first thing we're going to talk about is computers. So Tommy, why don't you give us a rundown on just your computer, so your tower. Give us the specs, the brand, etc. What do you got running? What's the brains behind the operation?
Okay, so my little buddy here is a Skytech Vortec, which is a pre-built gaming computer that was actually a little bit lower end. I have upgraded a lot. You'll hear that. I have a i5 Gen 10 processor with 64 gig of RAM that I installed. It originally came with 8. I don't know the model number, but I do have an ATX motherboard for gaming. I run a NVIDIA 3050 Ti graphics card.
Was that native, or did you add that?
That was added. I only had an 1850.
Okay.
It came stock. Well, due to pricing, I went bargain basement because I knew what I wanted from the computer. Yeah. And I also knew I could upgrade it cheaper than getting it pre-built.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I went that route. And I also have 3 separate solid state drives. My C drive is only 500 gig.
Solid state?
Solid state. My other 2 solid state are a terabyte each. Microsoft Flight Simulator is on 1. It has its sole drive. And everything, all my other supplemental gaming stuff like ATS, Call of Duty, that's all on my E drive. So I actually have 3 separate solid states for 2.5 terabytes worth of solid state memory.
Could you technically do like a 2 terabyte hard drive on one slot to leave a slot? How many? Yes. Do you know how many slots you have? Because I have like 4. I have a ton of slots.
I have 6 total.
Okay, so you have room to expand. Okay.
Oh yeah, I have 3 more open slots, and my motherboard will actually support up to the 3090, I believe, if I wanted to go that route. And next is my processor, so it will support a later generation i7.
Okay, I would say because i5's a little older for gaming. i5's a little on the older side. And how many display ports do you have? The double. We were talking about this the other day because of dual monitor setups, but you have HDMI and display.
Yes.
Display port. You have 2 of each. Not including your graphics card in ones. And everything's it's in-house. You don't have any input or additional. You have native graphics, right? You don't have any additional cards outside of the
CPU. No. What's in there is in there. It gives me exactly what I need for level of detail and stuff like that.
Nice. And what oh wait, that's monitors. We'll get to that in a second. Sorry, I was going to ask you a question about your resolution. My computer's a CyberPower pre-built Gamer Master gaming PC. It has an AMD Ryzen 7 5700 processor, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060 Ti, 1 TB solid state drive is what it came with, and then I also upgraded it to an additional terabyte in one of the slots. I did that a couple months ago to help with the content creation and stuff like that. It too also has it has two HDMI ports, two display ports, as well as the GPU. The motherboard graphics inputs for HDMI and DisplayPort if I wanted some external graphics drive put in there. Overall, it's a pretty good computer. It's trying to think of what else. I got tons of ports, like 6 USB 3.1 ports, USB-C port. It has tons of ports, and of course, I keep plugging stuff into it as I go along. But one thing I do want to note, though, is if you're looking for a multitasking computer, an AMD, I don't know if your system is compatible with AMD, Tommy, but you may want to look at an AMD Ryzen, because
mine's not.
No, okay. So that's a good thing to point out. So I used to have an i7 on my gaming laptop, which is a great processor, but it's really good at doing one thing at one time. It's good at prioritizing one thing at one time. You can run other programs in the background, but there's a lot of prioritizing going around when it's like for resources. So if you're running a bunch of games that are evenly resourced, like they're not resource hogs, then it's not that bad. But I used to notice that if I was playing a game that was a huge resource hog on my gaming laptop, which had an i7, everything else would take a hit because it was sending all the resources. AMD is a little bit more, is better for multitasking, I have found in my experience. But yeah, so I have an AMD Ryzen 7 5700. For monitors, I love geeking out about the monitors because it's the stuff you definitely don't see. I have my main monitor is a 32-inch LED curved 2K monitor from Dell. And I just got a used off of Facebook Marketplace. I got a 27-inch HD monitor that is now my secondary monitor over here. I've gone over a year and a half of streaming with Tommy and doing this podcast without a second monitor. And now I don't know how I did it that long. It's so nice to have all that information up all the time rather than having to tap through Windows and crap. So, and overall it's really good. It has they both have 165 hertz refresh rate, so that's how many frames it can support, so up to 165, and a 2 millisecond response time, so that's how quickly the color on the pixels on the screen can change. My 2K monitor can actually broadcast in 4K, so that's actually the resolution I have now, so I'm able to produce 4K content off a 2K screen. And that's more so because of, I think, also my GPU, but I'm able to actually broadcast 4K versus, even though I have a 2K monitor, which is pretty cool. What about you, Tommy? What's your monitor setup?
So my main monitor and gaming monitor is a 24-inch Asus that I run at 1920, 2K capable. Older monitor, so it's not 4K capable with the 2 mil refresh rate. So it puts out good enough. And this monitor was actually used, but it was used by a buddy of mine who's a computer engineer. So I knew it was well taken care of, and it only cost me shipping to get it up here from Kentucky. And it's great. I absolutely love it. To my right is the monitor that I purchased when I purchased the computer. I have a Hewlett-Packard 21.5-inch high-def HDMI monitor. I don't know what the refresh rate is. Now, normally when I use this, a lot of my windows are up here. When I don't want to use all my tablets, my charts and everything are on this side, or if we're looking something up during the show. So it's kind of like a utility monitor that I mostly use it for. And my third monitor on my left here is not a computer monitor at all. It is an old 19-inch Sanyo high-def TV.
There you go.
And really, it just kind of like chills out until I'm actually live. All my live chats, all my streaming software and stuff like that are set up on my left-hand monitor. I have it on an aftermarket stand, and I'm thinking about switching up my desk and stuff like that. But that's basically it. They all run through my GPU. It's all high definition, but the highest I go right now with my system capabilities is 2K.
2K. Yeah, and that's a good thing to talk about what you put on your monitors, because that's one of the things I looked up is like, okay, these streamers that have 3 monitors, I've seen like 6 monitor setups. Like, what do you all put on the screens? Because I could see myself using 2, and just for symmetry wise, so I don't go insane, maybe a third one. like I'm thinking, so on my left, my new monitor is just all my support stuff. So I'll have my OBS over here. I'll have my audio because those of you know my computer likes to switch off my microphone more often than I like to talk about. So I like having that sound panel up so I can actually monitor all the audio levels, and also chat. I'll have chat right next here and then OBS on the left side of the screen. What I'd like to do is get a third monitor and mount it vertically on my right side over here, so I have the ability to have chat windows up over here on the side. That's probably going to be my final monitor.
Exactly what I want to do too.
Yeah, that's probably going to be it. I don't need any more monitors. I was thinking about, I can mount it up here. I'm like, but why do I don't want to be looking up in the middle of the stream. So, yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do is hopefully I can find another curved one. But the thing is, since this could be vertical, it doesn't matter. The reason I wanted and found a curved one for is going to be over here is because it was curved. So it matches the curve. It's a Dell monitor, curved monitor too. So it matches the curve of my main monitor. So it looks nice. But yeah, so that's what I got going for the monitors. For our camera, Tom and I have both. We're rocking right now Logitech Brios, right? 4K Brios. Mm-hmm. Is that what you got?
Yeah, 4K Brio.
And I do have a Logitech C920 as well, which I've been using up until this point. The reason I did it is, and I'll get to the next part, is lighting. I didn't have great lights leading up to this, so the Logitech C920 seemed to do a little bit better than the worst lighting. But now I've upgraded to better lights, and so now I can start utilizing my Logitech Brio 4K. And the C920 is still good to have for other camera shots and such, but once again, my computer and OBS don't, and even TikTok doesn't like when there's two cameras happening at once for whatever reason. But so I have those two, and eventually I think I will upgrade to maybe a DSLR or something a little bit further down. But God, the mirrorless cameras are so expensive nowadays. For mics, I have the Rode into USB Mini, and I utilize a software called Voice Meter Banana, which allows it to sound really good. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to click that. This is what it sounds like when I completely remove Voice Meter Banana filters and stuff like that. This is just raw from the microphone, which is not bad. And then let me just reload my settings here. Load settings. And then, sorry, it automatically goes into monitor so I can check it, but this is what it sounds like. Yeah, this is what it sounds like through the software. So it's naturally really good out of the box, but it kind of helps tweak it a little bit. But the Rode was about $100 and it's a plug and play microphone. What mic do you got over there, Tommy?
Well, first I'll do my cameras. I got the same as the Brio with you. Now, when I live stream Microsoft Flight Simulator, most of you can see that there is a secondary camera set up that is solely on my flight controls and on the tablet that I use as a flight management computer. So you can see that. And that's just the basic J5 iCreate. I think I paid $49 for it or something like that. But it gives out a pretty good quality, also 2K. My mic is a Mayano D59 streaming mic with the adjustable arm. Or I also do have the attachments for it where I can just make a desktop. But, I kind of like moving it in and out of my face. And for easy storage, when I'm not on the computer, it just folds up, push it off to the side. So that way, if the better half needs the computer, it's not interface.
Yeah. And where did you get your microphone?
From the Mayano website itself.
Mayano. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
Mayano.
I mean, it's good. We can hear it. The audio quality. Do you have any audio software running for it,
or is it just plug and play? And it just had its general. A couple of the other things is I do have a master volume. That way, when you guys hear me half the time, that means I just hit the volume that's actually on the mic and tune it down. And also, I can run headsets through here. I always forget it. The regular headset plug-in from 1995, the cylinder one. Was the 5.1 or something like that?
3.5 millimeter jack, you mean?
That would be the one.
That one?
Yeah, I could actually run it through there.
That's how mine runs. But mine runs a cable down to, because the audio I'm hearing right now from you is from my microphone. I run it down my arm, and then it comes down here to a really long, I don't know if you guys can see it, a really long extension cable. Runs to the back of my chair, up the back of my chair, through this little gap, and then to my headphones. So that way you guys don't see any of the wires. It just looks like I'm sitting here with a wireless headset. So
Mm-hmm.
that's yeah. I use the 3.5 millimeter jack. It's more reliable than Bluetooth as well. Now lighting, I want to talk. This one's a big one because it used to piss me off. Excuse my language. Tommy always has perfect lighting. If you look right there, he has, whether he intends to or not, it's perfect lighting. And no matter what time of day it is, he has perfect lighting. And I have struggled with lighting my entire streaming career. It's been an irritant of mine, and Tommy knows this because it doesn't matter what type of camera you have or how high quality it is. If you can't provide sufficient light to the sensor for it to pick up, it's going to be grainy. It's going to be crappy images. So, Tommy, tell us about your lighting setup since it's so perfect.
So my lighting setup went at night. I walk over to the wall and I flip the switch, and the light's right here, right on the ceiling. I mean, typical ceiling light with a thing. Most of my light during the day, because I have no lights turned on in here during the day. I have a factory right across our driveway. So when the time of day, as the sun's coming up and around, the red brick factory actually reflects the light into the living room. And as long as the curtains are wide open, this is what I get. Now, some days,
Tommy,
depending on the sunlight, it's red because it's
yep.
red brick.
And Tommy gets a natural light bounce from the building across the street. That's his lighting. That's his professional lighting. And the nice thing about the Brio is you can go in and you can go through the Logitech G Hub and you can adjust the white balance. So if you wanted to, you could adjust out that redness that comes through the window.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it's perfect. It is always perfect. If you look at Tommy, just under, what is that, your left eye over here, the closest to the dark side? Is that your left eye? He has the Rembrandt's triangle, which you can kind of see mine. So Rembrandt's triangle is based off the Rembrandt painter, who this is his technique to reproduce light in paintings. You can see it's that little triangle on the dark side, right?
Yeah, right.
Tommy hasn't moved his setup since I've met him. This is literally natural lighting, and that's what irritates me the most. Not because of Tommy, but just this is okay. So for me, I started off with these little Vivitar 9-inch key lights, right? With my new update, they were bright when I got them, but over time they've gotten dimmer. So which means my camera quality has gone to absolute garbage, and also I had to have the lights like really close to me in order to get the brightness I needed, and also this, which also meant there was a lot of glare in my glasses. Well, luckily over this past month, I finally bit the bullet and said, all right, I need to upgrade my lighting. So I now have two Elgato key lights, which these guys are freaking bright. And to kind of put this into perspective about how bright these are and how much light you have to get into a webcam sensor, my key light is at full brightness, which is 2500 lumens right now, which doesn't make sense because a couple days ago, and this is a Logitech thing, when I was streaming, it was a lot darker and I didn't have to nearly use as much light. But this is what it looks like. I think it looks pretty good. The main difference is that it's also softer lighting. So it looks a little, no matter how bright I get it, it's not as harsh as LEDs. You can see this little glimmer here, and I thought at first that was like overexposure. No, what it is I have oily skin. So no matter what I do, even if I turn the exposure way down or the lights way down, there's always going to be that little light mark on there and on my nose. That's just because of the natural oiliness of my skin. But it took me a year and a half and countless dollars to figure out that's what I needed, and a bunch of experimentation on how to set everything up. And Tommy has the perfect lighting no matter what because it is God-given. So as you get, that's where I get frustrated.
And believe me, I appreciate it every time I stream.
Yep, every time it's perfect lighting. It doesn't matter what's happening. Tommy always has perfect lighting, and it just, his window happens to be 45 degrees off from where his camera is, and it's perfect. Mm-hmm. It's perfect. If he wanted, and it's perfect. Like I'm staring at it right now, I'm getting jealous because of the. It took me 30 minutes this morning to move these stupid lights around to get the Rembrandt triangle, and also not to completely illuminate my background. That's another thing. These things are so bright that if I tilt it up any further, it's gonna light up the background, and you lose the bluish tone behind me. So it took me 30 minutes this morning of going, okay, no, I still don't quite have it, and I moved it over, and then I have it. It almost looks like a skylight now because it's facing more down, but that is the only way I could get it to work. So, hey, hard work pays off, right?
That's right.
So, and also if you notice no reflections in the lenses, that's because it's above me. But the lighting is nice, soft, and more appealing than my Vivitar 9-inch key lights, which I will be doing a video on YouTube as we're updating all this stuff. I'll be going through how I set all this stuff up, how to actually, because there's a lot of videos out there where people are like, oh, you just need to make this rim bent triangle on your face. And it's like, okay, it's not that easy. And I'll be walking through the process of how I set that up. So that way everybody can try to recreate this light as best as you can. Because like I said, 1.5 years of me struggling, and all it took was buying better lights and watching or researching what lighting is to be able to figure it out. So I'll make that a little bit easier for you all. But with that, folks, we are going to wrap that. That was our geek out and freak out. If you guys have any questions about our setup or want to geek out yourself, definitely leave a comment here on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. Feel free to leave a comment and let us know what your setup is and maybe some recommendations for us in the future. But that concludes episode number 27, Geek Out and Freak Out, and we thank you all for joining us this week. If you enjoyed this week's show, please let us know by rating the show on the respective platform that you are listening on. For Spotify users, at the top of the podcast page near the notification bell, hit the 3 dots and select Rate Show. And for Apple Podcast users, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the podcast page to give your rating and review. And if you're watching us live today and would like to like the show or review the show, please feel free to go to Spotify or Apple Podcast to do just that. The reason Tommy and I are asking for you to do that is because last year in December, we are number 57 in the world for aviation podcasts, which is huge for this talk show. So we'd like to get our ratings up to get more people listening and to spread this podcast around the world so people are able to watch and tune in. And the way you do that is by liking it. The more you like it, the higher you rate it, the higher up the list it goes. And Spotify and Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio will be pushing out more of our podcasts to more people who are searching for something like this podcast. If you would like to stay up to date with the show and industry news, follow us on Twitter at Torque in Thrust Talk Show. That's coming right underneath my microphone here, going over to Tommy. At Torque in Thrust Talk Show, we post a minimum weekly, but we try to do daily about gaming updates, aviation updates, and such as well. And we also go live there as well. If you like to save the show for on-the-go entertainment and news, follow and turn on notifications for the talk show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And feel free to follow Tommy D and I on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. I'm at Captain Bill Official, and Tommy is at Level Flight Simulations. The next live show will be Saturday, July 20th at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. And on behalf of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, I am Bill.
I am Tommy.
And we will see you next week.